Okay, so you just learned the defense mechanisms, okay, and I want to quiz you on them. So, if you did not go immediately from the last of these lecture segments to this one, if there's been a break in between, you might want to stop a moment here and review your notes for the defense mechanisms, because what I'm going to be asking you to do is I'm going to give you each question. I'm going to ask you to pause your video and to think first and see if you can come up with the name of that defense mechanism without looking at your notes. It's really good practice if you can. And if you can't, then to look in your notes and find it before turning the video back on and hearing the right answer. Okay, so either way, it's really good practice to do this. So if you didn't go immediately from the last session to this one, you want to review your notes first before turning them over and trying to do this from memory. Pause this video right now. Okay, our first practice question is, Clyde is ashamed of his private desires for junk food, so he eats like a health nut. Stop the video. And the answer to this one is reaction formation. Reaction formation. Okay, if you got this one right, congratulations, because the name is not very intuitive, is it? All right, second question. Tirsa joins a sorority because it makes her feel popular and important. Pause the video. And the answer to this one is identification. Identifying with a person or a group to make yourself feel more important. Okay. Our third one, when Bill gets angry with his roommate, he yells, stomps his feet, and slams the door. Pause the video. And the answer to this one is regression. Regression. Now, if anybody got that wrong and put in displacement, you might want to go back over when we talk about these two. I'll give you a really nice trick there for teasing them apart. All right, next one. Lindsay recalls that her prom date was a disaster, but she just can't remember any of the details. Pause the video. And the answer to this one is repression, repressing memories that are too painful to hold. Okay. Next one, Laura is angry at her boss, so she kicks her dog. Pause the video. And the answer to this one is displacement, displacement. Next one, John doesn't really want to make fun of his sister, but he feels he can't help it because she is so stupid. Pause the video. And the answer to this one is rationalization, right? Making excuses that kind of sound rational, kind of sound like you're using logic. All right, and the last one, Maria has difficulty accepting that she is critical, so she often accuses others of being critical. Pause the video. And the answer is projection, projection. Okay, if you didn't get those all right, you might want to wait a day or two and retest yourself again. All right, so moving on to Freud's driving instincts. Okay, and you'll see here that there are two of them listed, but for quite a while, Freud only had one on the market, so to speak. So he was only talking and writing about one, had only formulated one in his mind. And that was the first one, which he always thought was the most major. And libido. Libido, so he's talking about the driving instincts, the strongest drives in life that drive our behavior and our thought processes that reside mostly in the unconscious, so most of the time we're not aware of their effect. Okay, the first one being the libido, and this is life or sex energy, life and sex energy. Okay, so the drive to live, the drive to keep living, but also the drive to reproduce, that's where sex comes in, right? And Freud thought that even when he came up with the second, he thought that most of human behavior, came from this life sex drive, the libido. Okay. Over time, he realized that people have this really unusual fascination with things like death and aggression, and that didn't quite seem to fit, it didn't seem to logically be coming from the libido. So then he formulated the theory of a second drive being thanatos. And this is a death aggressive instinct, okay, that he later added on. So the death instinct, believe it or not, the desire to die and return to the earth, okay, this resides almost entirely, if not entirely, in the unconscious. Okay. And it's usually, he said, turned outward and expressed as aggression against others. Okay, less likely to be expressed in the form of self-destruction because that would be too obvious, right? But he attributes aggressive behavior to this. He attributes even some hobbies. Let's see. One of mine that he might try to attribute to this would be skydiving. I like to think I'm too careful when skydiving, but who knows? Anyway, what he's talking about here is as these drives build up tension, so the libido and the energy, the thanatos energy build up over time. It creates tension in the part of the individual and a need for release in some fashion. Okay. So the character that Uma Thurman plays in this movie, titled what? What is this movie? Yep, the movie is Kill Bill, and she plays a character with extremely violent and aggressive urges. And the popularity of that movie really attests to this almost universal fascination with themes of violence and aggression and death. Now, Freud's psychosexual stages, okay, oftentimes very misunderstood. So, not unusual for people to think that Freud was talking about infants wanting to have sex. Well, no wonder the guy gets such a bad rap, right? Well, Freud wasn't stupid. Infants don't even know about sex. This isn't what he was talking about. What he was talking about is something that is actually really, really interesting as we look into our own past and as we have children and raise them through these formative years. He was talking about how it is that we develop the basis for our sexuality, the foundation of it. So in these first 5 years of life, hey, what he's actually talking about is how you become familiar with your body, okay, and how you become comfortable with your body. And he claims these first 5 years, everything. By the end of those 5 years, everything is done and set. In fact, not just in your sexual development, but in your entire personality. He hit a lot of things right, but we now know that personality develops through our whole life. However, I do want you to know that most psychologists by far do believe still, though, that those first 5 years are the most important. So, they feed in very heavily into things like how your personality develops in particular parts of it, like this basis for your sexuality. So we're going to look at Freud's psychosexual stages. And it doesn't sound bizarre at all, right? When you really hear about it and you understand that he's talking about how you become familiar with your body and how you become comfortable with it.